The air at the royal wedding shimmered with frost and fake smiles. I stood beside the gift table, in a soft beige dress that clung modestly to my frame. Not the designer gowns the other guests wore. Mine wasn't even new. It was the only formal dress I owned that still fit after 2 years of hard work and struggle. My hands were shaking slightly, but not from the cold. They were from humiliation. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Don't let her near the bride's side, someone whispered. I heard them. Every word. It was my cousin Madison's wedding, an elaborate affair at the Monroe estate, an ivy-covered mansion in upstate New York. But no one cared that I was family. Not since I married young, worked as a housekeeper to survive, and didn't live up to the Monroe standards. The first blow came just after I tried to walk toward the cocktail area. My father. She's just the housemaid, he bellowed, slapping his whiskey glass down on the tray of a passing waiter. The sound cracked through the air, like a whip. You think that necklace makes you someone, Lily? I froze. Guests turned their heads. His face was red, the veins in his neck pushing forward like ropes about to snap. Before I could speak, he grabbed the delicate silver chain around my neck, the last gift my late mom ever gave me, and yanked it so hard it snapped. No daughter of mine parades around pretending she belongs here, he roared, holding the broken necklace in the air as if it were a piece of trash. Gasps echoed across the courtyard. One of the aunts winced. An older cousin looked away. But no one stopped him. I clenched my fists. My heart raced, not with sadness anymore, but something darker. Something that had been boiling for a long time beneath years of silence, obedience, and betrayal. Don't talk to her, my stepmother hissed to a group of teenage cousins. She just cleans people's homes now. I turned toward the entrance slowly. A security guard stepped forward and muttered, You've been asked to wait outside. Wait outside. In the cold, while the people who shared my blood toasted to love and legacy under golden chandeliers. So I did. I stepped out, heels crunching over the frost-dusted gravel path. My breath came out in tight clouds. My arms folded. I didn't cry. I never cried in front of them. And then headlights. A low growl of a V12 engine. A black Rolls-Royce glided to a stop on the circular drive. The driver jumped out. The back door opened. He stepped out. A tailored charcoal coat, the collar pulled up against the wind. Sharp jaw. Icy eyes. And the one thing that made the blood drain from my father's face when he finally noticed. My husband, Elias Whitmore. The man behind Whitmore Ventures. Billionaire. Tech mogul. And the very person my family thought I'd never be worthy of. I watched the front doors swing open again. And I watched as every head turned inside. Because Elias didn't come quietly. He marched through the crowd like a storm wrapped in silk and steel. And when he reached the stunned cluster of my relatives, he didn't yell. He simply asked, in a low, icy voice, Who touched my wife? No one answered Elias right away. My father's lips parted, but the words died in his throat. He hadn't seen Elias in person since our courthouse wedding 2 years ago, the one they didn't attend, because she's marrying out of desperation. Now he was standing in the center of Madison's wedding like he owned the place, and in many ways, he did. The Monroes were old money, but Elias was new power. Global. Relentless. Feared in boardrooms and respected in every financial circle on the East Coast. I stood behind the large glass doors, watching it all from the cold. I didn't move. I wanted to see what my father would say now, when the world's eyes were no longer just on me, but on the man beside me. Elias's voice cut again, measured and calm. Who put my wife out in the cold? The tension inside crackled. Aunt Bridget looked down at her clutch. Uncle Wayne took a long sip of his champagne. Someone cleared their throat behind the harpist. No one dared speak. Until my father did. He forced a half-laugh, stepping forward like this was all some misunderstanding. Elias, son, look, we didn't know she was she showed up dressed like. Elias raised a hand. Just one. And my father stopped talking. Lily Whitmore. Elias said clearly, turning slightly so that the whole room heard him, is not just my wife. She's the strongest woman I know. She built herself from nothing. She stayed kind. While the rest of you, his eyes scanned the crowd, and his voice dipped into venom, measured value in nameplates and wine labels. I saw my cousin Madison's new in-laws shifting uncomfortably. Her groom, Connor, stared at Elias like a deer caught in headlights. This wasn't in the wedding plan. I was told to wait outside, I said softly, stepping back into the room. Elias turned toward me. His eyes softened the moment he saw me. He reached for my hand gently, as if the chaos behind him no longer mattered. I didn't want to ruin the wedding, I whispered. You didn't. They did. He kissed my knuckles, then turned back to the guests. And let me be very clear, if one more word is spoken against my wife, you'll see just how many contracts I can cancel in this town. Or how quickly the Monroe name can lose its prestige. The threat wasn't hollow. Elias funded most of the city's new tech corridor. He backed half the venture portfolios Madison's new father-in-law invested in. Without him, reputations and fortunes would crash faster than the champagne pouring from the centerpiece fountains. I didn't mean anything by it, my father stammered. It was just emotions running high. She's just the housemaid, I repeated, staring into his eyes. He flinched. Elias's jaw clenched again. I married her, Elias said, stepping protectively closer to me. But long before that, she rescued me. When no one else saw the man behind the mess I used to be.
She's the reason I am who I am.
And today, you humiliated her in front of the very people who used to claim they loved her. I could feel the shift in the room. The silence wasn't just awkward now, it was terrified. Apologize to her, Elias said to my father.
Now.
Or I'll break this family in ways you can't imagine. My father's mouth twitched, but no words came. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. This was the man who once told me, "You'll always be nothing but a burden." The man who called my job low class, who sneered when I scrubbed restaurant floors to pay for nursing school, who said I was throwing my life away when I walked out with 2 suitcases and no backup plan. Now he stood in front of my husband, pale and quiet, the whole room watching him as if he were a stranger caught trespassing at his own family's wedding. He started, eyes darting around for someone to back him up. No one moved. Say it, Elias said again, calm but sharp. Not for me. For her. My father's face contorted. Pride fought him to the bone, but fear, raw, corporate fear, clawed its way through. I'm sorry, Lily. It sounded like acid in his mouth. For calling you that. And for the necklace. I shouldn't have. He trailed off. I didn't nod.
I didn't speak.
I just looked at him, letting the silence stretch. Letting him squirm under the weight of years he thought I would never rise above. Elias turned to the coordinator nearby. Get the necklace, she dropped. And while you're at it, bring the event manager. The woman scurried off. Elias turned back to the crowd. I didn't come here to interrupt a wedding, he said evenly. But when my wife is dragged through frost like a servant and humiliated by her own blood, don't expect me to stay silent. Not anymore. A few guests began shifting back toward their champagne flutes. The music, which had stopped, cautiously resumed. But no one was really celebrating anymore. And then Elias dropped the real blow. Since we're among family, he said, glancing at the groom's side, you should all know something else. The Monroe estate? The one you're all so proud of? My firm purchased the remaining liens on it last week. This morning, the title transferred. Gasps rang out. What? My Aunt Bridget whispered. That's right, Elias said, pulling out a folded piece of paper. Ownership is under Whitmore Holdings. And the new co-signer on this property, he handed me the paper, is Lily Whitmore. My breath hitched. I didn't even know. The crowd's silence shattered into murmurs. I heard Madison's mother gasp. My uncle muttered a curse under his breath. And my father? He turned the color of ash. You bought the estate, he croaked. This house, this land, it's been in our family for generations. Elias looked at him without flinching. And it still can be. If you show my wife the respect she's always deserved. Otherwise, you can vacate by March. I looked down at the paper. My name. On the deed. Not out of revenge. Not out of spite. But as a reminder to myself that I didn't crawl out of that dark place just to survive. I rose to own the room that once threw me out. Let's go, Elias said gently. But I stayed 1 second longer. Looked my father straight in the eye and said, "You told me I was just a housemaid. But it turns out, this house belongs to me." We walked out through the same grand doors they once forced me through. Only this time, no one dared look away. Elias placed his coat over my shoulders. His touch was gentle, but I felt the power in it, the quiet storm he became when someone crossed a line too far. Especially when it came to me. "You okay?" he whispered as we stepped into the chill dusk air. "I don't know," I admitted, eyes still burning from everything that had just happened. I thought I was used to the way they treat me. But this felt like being spit on in front of the entire world. He stopped beside the Rolls-Royce, turned me gently to face him, and tilted my chin up. "They don't see you, Lily." They never did. But now they have to. The car door opened, but I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Behind us, the lights inside the estate glowed like fireflies trapped in a jar. Fake warmth. Fragile civility. Inside, they were probably trying to salvage the wedding. Trying to pretend nothing happened. But something had happened, and not just to me. Elias had changed the balance of power in one move. Not through rage. Not through violence. But through truth backed by undeniable force. "You really bought the estate?" I asked quietly, as we slid into the back seat. "I did. Last week. I was going to surprise you. But I didn't expect this." He looked out the window, jaw tight. "I should have stepped in sooner." "No," I said. I needed to see it. Feel it. To remember why I left. The car pulled away, but the emotions didn't. They stuck like thorns under my skin. Back at our home, miles away from Monroe pride and porcelain facades, I stood in front of the mirror and stared at the empty space on my neck, where Mom's necklace had once rested. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing their laughter, their whispers, the sound of the chain breaking. But I also kept hearing Elias's voice. "Who touched my wife?" I opened my laptop at 3 a.m., typed out an email to my old nursing professor, the one who had always told me, "You should teach." Maybe it was time. Not for revenge, but for growth. For power. Not just owning properties, but owning my future. 3 weeks passed. Then came the letter. A formal apology from the Monroe family, notarized and cold. I didn't respond. But what shook the foundation deeper? Madison's wedding photos went viral. Someone had caught the moment Elias confronted my father, his hand midair, pointing straight at the man who had once called me garbage. People weren't laughing anymore. People were asking questions. Who was the woman in the beige dress? Why did the billionaire defend her like she was royalty? And suddenly, the girl they once called a maid was the face of half a dozen trending stories. Wife of billionaire Elias Whitmore humiliated by her family, stands tall. Modern Cinderella moment goes viral. Housemaid turned queen. Lily Whitmore shocks high society. I didn't ask for it, but I wasn't going to run from it. 2 months later, I stood at the podium of Westbridge Women's Foundation Gala. In a deep emerald gown, not flashy, just powerful. Fitted. Elegant. Confident. The kind of dress that didn't scream wealth, but whispered arrival. The room was full of women, entrepreneurs, educators, survivors, fighters. People who had seen the inside of struggle. I took a breath, looked across the sea of eyes waiting for me to speak, and said, 2 months ago, I was told to wait outside in the cold. Not by strangers. By my own blood. Because I wasn't dressed a certain way. Because I had once scrubbed floors. Because I didn't fit the image of someone worthy.
Silence.
I didn't ask to be rescued. And I didn't want revenge. But that day reminded me of something deeper, that no matter how hard we work, the world will always have people who see us as what we were, not what we are. A few heads nodded.
A few eyes misted.
I kept going. What changed my life wasn't just marrying someone powerful. It was learning to stop waiting for people to accept me and starting to claim what was mine. Respect.
Space. Voice.
The applause started slow, then rose into a warm thunder. After the event, a line of women waited just to speak to me. Some asked about Elias. Others didn't. They asked about starting over, about healing, about breaking generational patterns of silence. I left that night with something more powerful than pity or pity-driven praise. I left with influence. 2 days later, I returned to the Monroe estate. Not for a fight, for closure. Elias walked beside me, dressed casually this time. I wore no jewelry, just a plain navy blouse, jeans, and flats. My father answered the door. He looked older, thinner, like life had taken something out of him. "Lily," he said, voice hoarse. I didn't ask to come in. "I'm not here for revenge," I told him. "And I'm not here to forgive what isn't ready to be forgiven." He nodded slowly. "But I needed to see you with my own eyes.
Not to hate you,
but to let you know I've moved on. And this place." I turned to glance at the estate. "This place has nothing left that I need." He opened his mouth, maybe to apologize again. Or maybe to beg. I didn't give him the chance. I walked back to the car, where Elias waited with a soft smile. He reached over and squeezed my hand. "You sure?" "I'm sure," I said. Because revenge wasn't owning the house. It was walking away from it without needing to prove I belonged. Today, I lecture at women's colleges. I mentor young girls who come from broken places. I'm building my own nonprofit for survivors of family abuse and neglect. And I'm finally using my voice, not to shout but to build. I never put Mom's necklace back together. Some things are better left broken, so we remember how strong we had to become without them. But I did keep one piece of it. And I had it embedded in a ring I now wear on my right hand. Not to remember the pain, but to honor the girl who was once left in the cold, before she learned she was never meant to beg for a seat. She was meant to own the entire room.